Hey folks, Michael Smikun here from Callagy Law, your relentless guardian, and I am joined by America's accountant Dan Geltrude, best-selling author of Positive Financial Karma, TV personality, and founder of Geltrude and Company. I am also joined by none other than Sean Callagy, the founder of the Unblinded Movement and president of Callagy Law. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic, Michael. Glad to be with you.
Michael,
Amazing.
any day could be with you and America's accountants. A great day. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. So we are here talking about this third stimulus package, the CARES Act, its impact and what it's doing for businesses here today. And so I wanted to bring Dan Geltrude here to talk a little bit about that. But let me ask you a question, Dan. You know, with everything that's going on right now, what is present for you?
What's present for me is a lot of uncertainty. I have been looking at this CARES Act extremely carefully. And boy, the more I read it, the more questions there are. But at the same time, I'm certain about that uncertainty and plowing through this stuff, talking to other experts, and relying on my own interpretation based upon my 30 years of experience with this stuff.
Sean, let me ask you, what's present for you here?
What is present for me, and I've been on some incredible calls that I want to acknowledge Joan Greco and the Lions and of the amazing Tony Robbins ecosystem. And there's been just, incredible entrepreneurs and successful people pouring through this. And I guess what's present for me is excitement to see what some of Dan's perspectives are as potential pitfalls and problems. I know there's a ton of uncertainty, but Dan, what pops for you as things people should be really on top of? I know get in the line, get in the queue, get moving. Anything else that at this point is really popping for you?
So a lot of the headlines here, Sean, relate to, hey, free money, get in line, everybody can get it. And of course, that's not exactly true. There are some stipulations here that we need to be careful about. But the first thing that I want to let people know, again, my interpretation of this process, I believe that the federal government is going to be pretty liberal about getting this money out into the hands of the small businesses. That's a great thing. At the same time, down the road, 8 weeks plus, there's going to be a time where people are going to apply to have these loans be forgiven. And at that point in time, I believe the government is going to get a lot more stringent. So where we don't want people to get somewhat lulled to sleep, like, I got this money, it's mine, I never have to pay it back. They don't follow the rules exactly. Then they get to the end of the game and they're like, oh no, I've just picked up more debt that I wasn't expecting. That's what we really need to be careful about here.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
Dan,
Yeah, good.
yeah, and I was just gonna add. So Dan, what I hear you saying is, money is gonna be available. It's gonna be there, and there's a lot of uncertainty that's wrapped around it. You really need to be thinking strategically about how much money you can get, how much money you should take, what the benefits of that amount of money are, and what you should look out for in the event you do take money. For business owners, what do you think are probably the three most important things they should be thinking about right now before they take money, and how much money they take?
So this money is for a very specific purpose. So let me get into the mind of the government for a second.
Yeah.
The reason that they're putting this money out there is to keep businesses in business. Specifically, they want businesses to be able to pay their bills. But the asterisk that we have to put in here is as follows. As part of those costs, they want you to retain your employees, even if you don't need them. If you want this loan to be forgiven, you gotta pay your employees, working or not. So conceptually, what are we talking about? They want you to pay your payroll. They want you to pay your carrying costs, things like your rent, mortgage interest, and some of the other benefits of interest on debt prior to February 15th of 2020. So conceptually, what they're trying to do is they're just trying to keep your head above water and using small businesses, quite frankly, as a vehicle to provide unemployment benefits to employees. If you're going to go beyond that and think you're going to use this money for inventory, that's not going to work, and you're going to end up with having more loans than you had anticipated out of the box related to this program.
And Dan, let me ask you this question. If you end up, like you ask for $2 million, but you use $1 million of it for payroll and the things that are listed in the CARES Act, what happens with that other $1 million when the government goes, wait a second, you didn't need $2 million to cover your payroll and maintain employees and pay rent. You used $1 million for something else. What do you think happens when the government finds that out?
Well, it's going to be quite simple. What the government is going to do is turn around and say, we're converting that to a loan under the terms that they've established. It's basically a 10-year loan at 4%, and you're going to have to pay it back. And the part that businesses have to be careful about is this. When we come out of this coronavirus situation and businesses are starting to recover, remember, you're going to have this additional debt payment. So there's going to be a ramp up and you have new debt. You may end up being in a situation far worse than where you had imagined, because now you're saddled with more debt that you didn't anticipate. And that's the danger here, Michael.
Yeah. And Dan, if I jump in, Dan, you're saying if the loan isn't forgiven, is that what you're referring to?
The loan, the parts of the loan that are not forgiven. So there'll be a piece, Sean, that's forgiven because you've used it for its intention. For the remainder of that, if you've spent it on other things, well, now you've just taken out a loan. Got
it. Can I, and Mike, give me 1 minute with this. So yeah. What comes up in a super present way for me is, and this could be my ignorance, could be my complete lack of understanding. I feel like it is not likely. We live in New Jersey. I have offices across the country. Well, not everywhere, but in a bunch of different states from south to west. And it feels like to me this is not going to end anytime soon. There's this element of like, okay, by May, by June, that doesn't feel like what's going to happen. Simply because, I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding. I'm really curious about your impressions on this, Dan. A fundamental misunderstanding to me seems like, oh, isolation equals we get through it faster. When isolation, my understanding is equals elongation. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be isolating. I'm saying we should. But isolation equals elongation because people aren't getting sick as fast, and it's elongation. So the healthcare facilities are not overwhelmed, hospitals, et cetera. So if we just let this run its course, which I don't think we should do, then everybody gets sick faster. The death rates would rise massively. But by isolating, we're stretching this out incredibly. And then if we come out of isolation, it just rockets back upward. So this doesn't feel like something to me that is a 2-month process. This feels much more like a 6-month or more process. And I just want to know what your sense of that is.
I actually agree with you, Sean, in that the longer the process goes for the health healing of this, the more damaging it is to the economy. Because let's take an example. Let's take that restaurant, which we know is closed right now, and they're just trying to hold on. As we start to come out of this over however many months, and the government starts to relax the rules related to people being able to get out and go into restaurants, my assumption, for example, is they're going to make social distancing part of what happens in a restaurant. So now let's say a restaurant only has half the capacity than it did before, and it may have to stay that way for a while. Restaurants with really tight margins may not be able to make it, only having their dining rooms half full. So that's a primary example of the longer this goes, it could be really damaging to a lot of businesses.
And one more question. So from your perspective, as we go through this 2.5 months, so this is essentially 2.5 months of payroll, right, is what we're talking about, plus some things.
Right.
When do you think the government runs out of the capacity to do this? Because let's say this is 6 months, 9 months, that we are either in and out of isolation or completely in isolation. I think something just came out of the UK where they were talking about 6 months of isolation. I'm not sure if that's factually accurate. Somebody mentioned that to me this morning. I didn't independently verify it. What do you, like, when does the government, do you think, run out of the ability to continue to extend these types of unemployment benefits to companies?
Sean, that is fantastic insight as to what the core problem is going to be. Long after this virus disappears, we are going to be fighting the economic battle. So if we take this in just a small piece, for example, in the forgivable loan program, $350 billion has been allocated for that. That's a lot of money, no question about it. But when you have virtually every business in the country applying for these loans, how long is $350 billion going to last? And I say not that long. So there's going to have to be more stimulus along the lines of just this program. So now when you take the bigger picture of all the money that the government is spending and printing money, Sean, we could very well come out of this, even if we're okay, go into a hyperinflationary period because there's too much money available. How about that one?
Yep.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of things to be hopeful for and a lot of things where there's a massive amount of uncertainty. And it feels like at a time like this, and we're getting guidance over time, and someone like Dan, who is at the front row of all of this, more information is becoming available. But every time new information becomes available, more uncertainty is created. And I think that's why it's such an important time to really take stock of the distortions that you're feeling and all the fear, and make sure that you're making smart decisions with your business on how to structure it, how to keep people employed. Because a lot of people, for example, are talking about loan forgiveness. That means I got to retain all of my employees for loan forgiveness. But nobody's talking about the other tax benefits if you don't seek loan forgiveness. If you try to operate your business without taking money from the government, there's all these additional tax benefits, which I'm sure Dan, like, if we let Dan go on this, he could start now and end next week and talk about all the tax benefits to this. But strategy is so critical right now, and to not feel that distortion caused by fear and to begin to make strategic decisions. And someone like Dan, talking to him even for 20 minutes before we started this video, and I'm like, let's just go live on this, it illuminated me in terms of all these opportunities that are available for businesses. And we want to make sure that they're getting the information from source, someone like Dan.
Yeah. So Dan, we had discussed it prior to the call, and I was thinking, a webinar, maybe not, updated videos. There's a lot of outlets that you have, Dan, that I have, that Michael has, in terms of social media and relationship dynamics. I think a longer webinar would be appropriate, but maybe, Dan, when we have a little bit more of a clear picture, when do you think we will have, let's do it this way. What would you recommend today that people do, like right now today? And then when do you think you would have more updated information and we could do another version of this, or we have it more updated and live? I know that's not perfect, but action steps today. And when do you think we'll have some more clarity?
Action steps today. You should be reaching out to your accountant and getting as much information from them as you possibly can. If they don't have the information or they're not up to speed on this, you got to pivot, because the window of this is going to close within some period of time. But that aside from the professional guidance, what I would tell you right now, start getting your payroll information from last year together, because that is going to be the basis for how much of a loan or potentially a forgivable loan you can take out. And then from there, you have to project out how your business is going to be doing over the next 2 months and how you're going to put that money to work for you. So that's what I need to do today. As far as when will more information become available, that is literally changing every single day. I think we'll have a clearer picture tomorrow and a clearer picture the next day. And certainly by next week, I think a lot of the uncertainty will start to become clarified as the government catches up to the questions that are coming from the professionals.
Well, Dan, if you want to do a daily update together here and even appear on the Unblinded Huddle, our Unblinded Huddle at unblindedhuddle.com each day. And we, by the way, I wasn't thinking that prior to the call, so this wasn't all designed, so I can say that sentence, I promise. We're trying to get incredibly effective information out there to everybody making the right decisions. And what's also present for me, Dan and Michael, is if we're going to have teammates that are employed, you know, we have a lot of folks at Callagy Law, some of them are not going to have things to do. And with them still working here, what comes up for me is what can we do with those teammates that are still on payroll, whose job functions are not existing right now because the people they work with, they're closed and there's just nothing for them to do that they ordinarily would have done. What can we do with those people? The question I ask is what can we do with those people, team with those people to create value at some point into the future? And I think that's innovation right now, which is not, I think, the greatest strength of people or habitual creatures. And it feels like right now, our ability to innovate on a daily basis, if not a couple of times a day, not frantically, but consistently with beautiful process, feels like something very present for me. Any final thoughts on that, Michael, Dan?
Yeah, let me take it, and then I'm going to give Dan the final word. So 100%, Sean, I think that right now is an opportunity for, you know, as many terrible things that are happening inside the world right now, and all people getting sick, even people close to me, you know, having been diagnosed with, you know, coronavirus, people who are on ventilators now, and, you know, God help them that they're able to pull through with these issues. There's nothing that we can do, right, as we sit here today to help those people except give them their thoughts, prayers, positive energy, whatever you want to do. But there's also an opportunity and a responsibility, at least I feel it every day, to make sure that I'm delivering the highest value of myself and to my team so that we can help our clients maximally, that we can help each other maximally, that I can ensure that they have jobs. And so I have a responsibility to make sure that they are improving themselves every single day to meet the intent of the government. And that is, let's try to employ and keep employed as many people as possible. So when all of this is over, and it will be over, I believe that to be the case. When this is all over, we exit accelerating as opposed to slow and potentially entering into a world where there will be hyperinflation, where there will be depression, where there will be those types of challenges. So I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you say. And I'm going to give Dan the final word. I just want to tell Dan how appreciative I am that you've joined me today, that you've given your time. I know that you're on Fox a lot. I watch you. Me and my wife comment all the time about your amazing shoes and your sense of style, which is fantastic. I want to give you the final word, Dan.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Sean. So my closing here will be actually pretty concise, and here's how I see it. The world is never going to be the same post-coronavirus. We are in store for some permanent changes, even though we may not know exactly what that looks like yet. My advice to everybody right now, start your evolution today.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. So Dan, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you being on. Sean, thank you for joining us today. And I think we should do this again. I think we should do it shortly. And Sean, I disagree with you about one thing. I think we should do a webinar. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have the same kind of questions that you and I both have that are going to talk to Source. And Dan is Source.
Great. Let's do a webinar. We'll get this out there and we'll let people know when that's going to be. Or do you want to schedule it right now?
Yeah, I don't know when Thursday, but let's do it Thursday, right? We will keep updating as information comes out. You see me, Relentless Guardian. I'm putting out videos all the time. We could put out videos all the time. As long as Dan schedule permits, I will make myself available to him.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.